"I think this is a movie, Mr. Hanks?" Judge Barrow's voice thundered across the courtroom. "This is a federal courtroom, not a Hollywood soundstage." Tom's palms stayed flat on the oak table. He didn't flinch. His tie was slightly crooked, sleeves rolled up just above the elbows. Not the usual courtroom attire, but this wasn't a usual case. "I'm fully aware of where I am, Your Honor," Tom replied calmly, "and I intend to treat this courtroom with the dignity it deserves." The audience, press, plaintiffs, and lawyers alike, shifted, whispering. No one expected that voice. The same voice from Forrest Gump and Saving Private Ryan, now standing up to a judge accused of corruption. Barrow leaned forward, his eyes sharp behind his glasses. "You're not even a lawyer." Tom reached into his briefcase, pulling out a certificate. "I completed my JD 2 years ago, passed the bar last spring. I'm representing myself." The silence was heavy. Barrow snatched the document, scowling. Outside, Washington, D.C.'s humid summer air pressed against the windows. Inside, the tension was suffocating. "Your Honor," Tom said, eyes locked on Barrow's, "I'm not here to play a part. I'm here because someone has to stand up when the system goes blind." Barrow's face darkened. Then, the gavel slammed. "Proceed." The court reporter looked stunned. So did half the room, but Tom knew this was just the beginning. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe and share your thoughts below. Your voice matters more than ever. Tom stepped outside the courthouse during recess. The stone columns towered above him, baking under the brutal summer sun. He loosened his tie and took a slow breath, trying to still the storm in his chest. "Mr. Hanks." The voice came from behind. A woman, mid-40s, smart blazer, worn eyes. "I'm Karen Delgado," she said, extending a hand. "Clerk for Judge Barrow, or I was." Tom took her hand cautiously. "You quit?" "Resigned," she corrected. "Right after I saw what he did to my colleague. She raised questions about sealed documents. He retaliated, had her license suspended on a technicality." Tom narrowed his eyes. "So you know something." Karen looked around before leaning closer. "Barrow's hiding more than bias. There are files, motions he's delayed, cases reassigned for no reason. You're not just making noise in there. You're threatening something buried deep." Tom studied her face. She wasn't exaggerating. "I can't give you everything," she continued, "but I can point you in the right direction. Check case number 2009 CR 774. It never went to trial. Look who was listed as the defendant." "And the charges?" Tom asked. Karen shook her head. "They disappeared." A gust of wind lifted papers off Tom's folder. He grabbed them, pulse rising. "You're risking a lot, Karen." "So are you," she said, already walking away. "But someone has to." Back inside, the bailiff called court to order. Tom sat down, gripping the note Karen had slipped into his hand. 2009 CR 774. Start digging. That night, Tom sat cross-legged on the floor of his Georgetown apartment, law books scattered around him like fallen dominoes. A single lamp glowed over his laptop as he typed the case number, 2009 CR 774. Nothing. Not in the public docket. He tried again through a legal archive, a dead link. Then a restricted access message. He rubbed his face. "What are you hiding, Barrow?" Suddenly a file blinked open, not on the browser but through a secure folder he'd forgotten he'd left running from an old contact in the DOJ. It was a single-page PDF. Defendant, Marcus K. Barrow charge, obstruction of justice disposition, sealed, no record of proceedings. Tom stared at the screen. Barrow himself had been a defendant. He called Julia, his former law professor. She picked up after 2 rings. "Tom, what's going on?" "Did you ever hear of Barrow being indicted? 2009. Silence. Then, "Where did you hear that name?" "You know something." Julia sighed. "I was still clerking back then. It was buried fast. He had friends in high places. The case just disappeared." Tom stood up, pacing. "Karen Delgado gave me the number. You need to be careful," she warned. "If you bring this to light, you're not just attacking a judge. You're challenging the system that protects him. Then I'll challenge it." Julia paused. Then don't do it alone. Tom looked at the file again. He wasn't sure if he was in over his head or exactly where he needed to be. The next morning, Tom walked into the courtroom with a purpose. The prosecution smirked as he approached. Back again? Didn't think Hollywood types lasted more than a day under pressure. Tom ignored him. I'm filing a motion to admit evidence under judicial review. Judge Barrow raised an eyebrow. On what grounds? Tom held up a printed copy of the sealed 2009 file. Material relevance. The integrity of this court depends on full disclosure of a judge's past conflicts of interest. Gasps echoed through the gallery. Barrow's gavel slammed once. Approach the bench. Tom did. So did the prosecutor. Barrow's voice dropped. How did you get that? It's public if you know where to look, Tom said, steady. You're playing with fire. I'm not afraid of getting burned. Barrow's jaw tightened. Denied, that record is sealed. Mention it again, and I'll hold you in contempt. Tom returned to his table, pulse racing. Every juror's eyes were on him now, not all with sympathy, some with confusion, others with fear. Julia texted from the gallery. He can't suppress that forever. Keep pressing. Karen appeared in the back row. A silent nod. She was still with him. Tom rose again. Then I'd like to call a witness. Karen Delgado. Barrow stood. No. You will not weaponize my former staff for theatrics. She has relevant testimony, Tom insisted. Obstruction, intimidation, witness tampering. Barrow paused, then sat down. Proceed. The room shifted. Tom's war was no longer just personal. It had become public. Karen Delgado took the witness stand, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She glanced once at Barrow, just once, and then locked eyes with Tom. State your name and occupation for the record, Tom said. Karen Delgado, former clerk to Judge Marcus Barrow. Ms. Delgado, during your time in Judge Barrow's office, did you observe any irregularities? She took a deep breath. Yes, several. Files delayed without reason. Motions denied before review. One case, a young woman was suing a federal contractor for harassment. Her file vanished. She never got a trial. Gasps again. Barrow stared straight ahead, unmoving. Did you ever question him? Yes. Once. He asked if I liked having a job. A week later, I was reassigned to copying files in the basement. Tom nodded. Did you witness any other staff receive similar threats? Karen hesitated. Samantha Rayner. She tried to report a sealed document issue. Her law license was suspended within a month. Tom stepped back. No further questions. The prosecutor stood. Ms. Delgado, you're a disgruntled former employee. Why should we trust your word now? Karen didn't flinch. Because I loved that job. I believed in justice. I stayed quiet too long. I won't anymore. The courtroom held its breath. Tom looked at the jurors. Some leaned forward now, their skepticism melting into concern. As Karen stepped down, Tom caught her eye and nodded. She had just cracked the wall. Not shattered it, not yet, but there was daylight showing through. During recess, Tom stood outside under the marble awning, the weight of the courtroom pressing into his shoulders. Rain had started, soft, steady, and strangely calming. Julia called. You're shaking the hive, Tom. The Bar Association just issued a statement about maintaining courtroom decorum. That's coded language. They're watching you, Tom sighed. Good. Let them. Julia's voice lowered. Watch your back. He hung up, just as a black SUV pulled up to the curb. A man in a grey suit stepped out, late 50s, cold eyes, perfect posture. Mr. Hanks, the man said. I'm with the Office of Court Administration. Tom gave a wary nod. You're causing a ripple. The kind that breaks things. Maybe they need breaking. The man smiled thinly. People like you always believe that. Until they realize institutions don't break, they bury. Without waiting for a response, he walked off. Tom re-entered the courtroom, soaked from the rain but focused. Call your next witness, Barrow said, almost bored. Tom glanced at his notes. I'd like to enter into evidence an affidavit from Samantha Rayner. Barrow blinked. She's under suspension. Her testimony doesn't require a license, Just truth. Barrow hesitated. You'll get 5 minutes. The paper burned in Tom's hand as he walked it to the clerk. A sworn statement detailing Barrow's threats, misconduct, and concealed settlements. Barrow's fingers tapped the bench. Tom caught a flicker in the judge's eyes. Fear, maybe, or rage. He smiled to himself. Daylight wasn't the only thing showing through now. The courtroom was quieter than usual the next morning. Reporters lined the back, notebooks ready, cameras off, but present. Something had shifted. Tom arrived early. He set his files down, adjusted his tie. No nerves, just clarity. Barrow entered late. Everyone noticed. The clerk stood. All rise. As Barrow took his seat, his gavel clacked weakly. We'll continue with yesterday's submission. Affidavit from Ms. Rayner. Tom rose. Your Honor, I'd like to read an excerpt aloud for the record. Barrow didn't object. Tom unfolded the page. In her statement, Ms. Rayner writes, Judge Barrow instructed me to reroute filings from specific plaintiffs, primarily whistleblowers and low-income claimants, to the backlog pile. When I questioned the legality, he told me, quote, it's not about the law, it's about who holds the pen. A murmur passed through the room. Barrow's jaw was clenched tight. Tom looked up. She adds that she was suspended a month later after an anonymous complaint. A complaint traced back to Barrow's office email. The jury was listening now, truly listening. The prosecutor fidgeted. Barrow leaned forward. Mr. Hanks, what is your goal here? You're not representing a client. You've built no damages claim. I'm here, Tom said, to challenge an institution that punishes truth. Barrow stood up. This hearing is adjourned until further notice. Court will resume pending administrative review. The gavel slammed. Tom didn't move. He looked around at the gallery, at the jury, at the man behind the bench. The cracks weren't just in the court. They were in Barrow. Tom was packing his files when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Hanks, we haven't met, but I represent parties with a vested interest in keeping the judiciary stable. Tom's voice was calm. Go on. We're prepared to offer a resolution. Quiet. Clean. You drop the public motion against Barrow. In exchange, he retires early. You walk away looking principled. Tom closed his laptop slowly. You want me to settle with a corrupt judge? We're offering a solution that avoids chaos. Tom looked out the courthouse window. The rain had stopped. A pale strip of sunlight cut across the marble floor. What if I say no? There was a pause. Then you'll make enemies you don't see coming. The kind that don't lose. Click. Tom sat still for a long time. The room felt colder, the kind of cold that sinks beneath skin. Later that day, Julia met him at a diner in Adams Morgan. No court talk, just coffee, eggs, silence. You're not obligated to be a martyr, she said quietly. I'm not. She studied him. Then why keep going? Because someone out there is watching. A kid, maybe, a clerk. Someone afraid to speak. Julia nodded slowly. So we give them someone who didn't flinch. Tom raised his mug. To not flinching. Their coffee cooled, untouched. Outside, the world spun on. But inside that booth, it had paused, just long enough to remember why truth was worth the fight. Court resumed 2 days later. The gallery was packed, students, lawyers, even off-duty clerks. Whispers buzzed like static in the charged air. Barrow entered without his usual swagger. His robe looked heavier now, his gavel rested untouched. Tom stood. Your Honor, I request that the sealed record from Case 2009 CR 774 be unsealed for judicial review and jury access. Barrow stared at him. The file is beyond your reach, Mr. Hanks. Tom didn't blink. I filed a petition with the Circuit Judicial Ethics Committee, and I brought a copy of the motion for judicial disqualification. The room fell silent. The clerk walked a folder up to Barrow's bench, official seal, stamped and signed. Barrow opened it. He read. His face didn't move, but something behind his eyes cracked. Tom stepped forward. Your Honor, this courtroom deserves transparency. So does every case you've ever presided over. If you believe in justice, step aside. Let the system do what it was built to do. Barrow looked at the jury, at the lawyers, at the gallery filled with eyes that once admired him. Then he rose, slow, deliberate. "I hereby recuse myself from these proceedings." Gasps, a camera shutter, the scrape of the judge's chair. Barrow turned and walked out, black robe trailing like a retreating shadow. Tom exhaled for the first time in hours. He didn't cheer, he didn't smile. He just stood there, one man in a room that had finally opened its eyes. And the truth, at last, had a voice. 3 weeks later, the courtroom was different, brighter. No cameras, no whispers, just process. Judge Langston presided now. Fair, neutral. Uninterested in optics, focused on facts. Tom sat quietly as the jury filed in. The foreperson stood. On the matter of judicial misconduct and suppression of evidence, we find that the conduct of Judge Marcus K. Barrow warrants formal investigation by the Department of Justice and the Judicial Ethics Committee. It wasn't prison, but it was accountability. The room remained silent. Not from shock, but respect. Outside, reporters swarmed. Tom ignored them. Karen found him on the courthouse steps. "You did it." "We did it," Tom corrected. She smiled faintly. "You ever think it would end like this?" Tom shook his head. "I never thought it would end at all." Julia approached, holding a small envelope. "From the clerk's office," she said. He opened it. An official letter from the American Bar Association. Commendation for outstanding ethical conduct and commitment to judicial transparency. He folded it and put it in his jacket. "What now?" Karen asked. Tom looked across the street. A public law clinic, a long line of people outside. "I think I'll start there." Julia grinned. "Still playing the hero?" Tom smiled for the first time in days. Not a hero, just someone who didn't flinch. He crossed the street, sun overhead, jacket slung over his shoulder. Justice wasn't a destination, it was a path, and he was just getting started.